Welcome everybody to our same continuation of our same scenario, the extended Battle of Bussaco, hope I'm pronouncing that right, in Portugal in 1810. This is an assault against Wellington's position by Régnier and Ney, and we've already played through the first battle where Régnier actually has managed to push Napoleon off the ridgeline and capture the ridge in that first game. We're now looking to play the second scenario, see if the British can hold on. So let's have a look at the setup we've got for this game. Okay, so we've got a much more elite, well, I've another very strong selection of British troops here. So we've got a foot artillery battery securing our left flank. We then got a battalion of British line, and a battalion, elite battalion of British Light. I think that's the 52nd Oxfordshire. We have the 95th Rifles with their skirmisher screen thrown out in front. You can see there we have the 71st Light, the Scottish Light Regiment, and another regiment of British Line. And there's Wellington himself behind this village. Here is the reentrant, the sort of narrow gully that found its way up onto the plateau. Deployed next to the gully, we've got a British horse artillery battery. And then on our right flank we have a brigade of Portuguese, again supported by another British foot artillery battery. As they look across the field, we can see the French forces facing off against them. Here we have two brigades of French infantry, light and line, and a foot artillery battery. And as we move across, you can see another brigade against the right flank. We have a gap in the centre here. We don't know if the French are going to bring on some more reserves there. So it looks like a strong British left and a weak right, and a strong French left and a weak right. So we might see a bit of a turning movement here and a need to redeploy some of the elite British forces to hold this right flank. Alright, we'll crack on with turn 1 of this game. Another 12-turn scenario, and again the same rules for mounting the side of the escarpment. So it'll be half movement with no penalty, or if you move a full move you have to do a discipline test and roll less than your adjusted discipline level to succeed. Alright, let's crack on with turn 1. Okay, so the British and their allies have been aggressive here, and we've deployed artillery assault on our horse artillery battery, and indeed artillery assault also on our foot battery on the right flank. Start giving us some fire against this large French assault that's coming in against my Portuguese. Actually, we're all active. And the French have two brigades active, but their right flank brigade is hesitant, or perhaps it's just holding off, we'll see. So this will be a test at -1 for the French. Okay, the Allies have initiative on turn 1. So at the end of turn 1 we're starting to see some redeployment here. The Allies are moving one of their infantry battalions across with a view to occupying this position next to this artillery battery and just edging the Portuguese battalion to the right. So again, you can see a Portuguese battalion there formed up in column to march behind its rear lines, and again we've made space for it to move slightly to the right with these Portuguese battalions on the hill here. Alright, there'll be some firing and we will open up with the British artillery batteries. Okay, we'll open up first with our foot artillery battery. They are at effective range, and they're going to take aim against this battalion of French light infantry, veteran French light infantry as it transpires. Let's see how we do. Not bad, a 9 and 1 extra casualty dice comes through as well. That's 3 casualties and a discipline test on this French light battalion. And we roll a 4, 5, so they go unformed. Again, at effective range, our Royal Horse Artillery down here is going to open fire. It's going to be opening fire at this line infantry battalion. Let's see how we do. Wow, that was nearly a double 6, didn't quite turn through. So it's a 10 at effective range. That's 3 casualties and a discipline test. against that battalion. Let's just roll for them. They get a 9, they're fine, but another 3 casualties on that French line battalion. Right, our final foot artillery is going to open up. In this end of the valley we have no lingering fog, so we can see those small French battalions opposite. So we're going to open up against one of those. And we roll a 10, another good roll. At long range, that is 2 casualties and a discipline test. Let's do a discipline test against that French battalion. It's a 9. They are fine, but they take their 2 casualties. Okay, so just a recap at the end of turn 1. British artillery has opened up, done a reasonable amount of damage. French artillery has just deployed this turn, so it won't be firing. The French infantry columns are all advancing against the right-hand side of the ridge, holding off against the left, and the Allies are starting to redeploy some of their force to face off against this threat. Alright, we'll see what happens as we move on to turn 2 and ADCs. Okay, so we've both stacked our ADCs. The British have put artillery assault with a reroll on the horse artillery battery, wanting to have maximum flexibility with it there, and its infantry brigade in the centre. That's come off. The Portuguese battalion brigade has gone hesitant, so it loses its artillery assault. And the left-hand British brigade was active, so the British are at -1. For the French, they put infantry assault on their far brigade over there, but this brigade and the brigade over on the left-hand side went hesitant, didn't have enough ADCs, didn't have any for the reroll, so they're at -2. Rolling for initiative, the French do have initiative despite having the penalty, so they will get to move first in turn 2. Alright, so we completed movement on turn 2, and we can see our Portuguese reinforcements are starting to move along the back of their line. They're now past their artillery battery and are ready to deploy. And similarly, our British reinforcing battalion is moving out from behind the village to swing out in support of its horse artillery battery. And in the village itself, we've redeployed the 52nd Light. Sorry, not the 52nd Light, 71st Glasgow, to the right hand side of the village to provide fast support in that direction, potentially a place to counterattack from. Fortunately for the French, they've been really lucky here. They've moved all of their infantry battalions forward, they kept them going at full speed, and they haven't been disordered by the very steep terrain, and they managed that on all 5 battalions. So great performance by them, and looks like the attack on this flank is in good shape. Alright, that's it for movement, and we'll now do firing on turn 2. Starting on the left, we're opening fire with our battery at long range against those French battalions. We'll try and pick another one, a different one this time. We'll go for the one in the middle. Not so good, 3, that's a fatigue casualty. Clearly that's been a long haul getting those guns up on the ridge, and they're not in great condition, those gunners. We'll put that casualty on and move on. Okay, we're going to do artillery assault again. Same target, that battalion, that line battalion in the centre. Not quite so good this time, only a 5 at effective range. I think that'll just be 1 casualty. Yes, and 1 extra casualty from the casualty dice. So that's 2 more casualties on that attacking French battalion. Right, we're going to open up with our foot battery, again targeting the now disordered French infantry battalion ahead of it. Not great, 3, that's another fatigue casualty. Clearly it was hard work getting these guns in position at the start of this battle. Okay, and finally the Portuguese are going to do 2 volleys. That skirmish screen has edged just into range, which is a bit unfortunate for them. They should have stayed just outside the 9-inch range, but they got it. So the reds will be the right-hand battalion, the blues will be the left. Okay, neither of those are going to cause any casualties on the skirmishers. I'll do the skirmisher return fire, and then we'll crack on with turn 3. Okay, let's roll for ADCs on turn 3. Ney gets 1 ADC automatically, and then we're adding 3 more. Alright, he's got 4 ADCs for this turn. Wellington gets 2 ADCs, and then we roll for his 3 brigades. He gets 2 more. Both sides have got 4 ADCs for this turn. Let's see how they choose to deploy them. Okay, so the French are going for a reroll on this brigade. It already has infantry assault in place, so it goes off and is active. Alright, the brigade in the centre has given 3 ADCs, and it's going to try and put infantry assault on itself, and it's given itself a reroll. It needs it. I roll a 2. And I roll a 1. Unfortunately, that brigade stays hesitant, a waste of ADCs. And then our fire brigade is active this turn. So we have 1 hesitant French brigade. This turn, for the Allies, we've put artillery assault on the Portuguese battery and the Royal Horse Artillery battery. Let's roll for those. So for the Portuguese, no re-roll, artillery assault fails to go off. For the Royal Horse Artillery, it's active. And then for the final Allied Brigade, it's hesitant. Alright, so we have 2 hesitant Allied Brigades and 1 hesitant French. Alright, let's roll for initiative. So the French, with only 1 hesitant brigade, are only on -1, the Allies are on -2. Allies don't have initiative, French gain it, they rolled a 7, -1 is 6, Allies are 4, -2 is 2. So French have the chance to charge and move first. Okay, so we'll start with artillery fire from the French. Long range counter battery fire, so this will be a -2. That's a 6, that goes down to a 4. That will be no casualties at long range against the Royal Horse Artillery battery. That is good. We'll fire the French skirmishers. 3 of them are in range of the Royal Horse Artillery, and they cause 2 more casualties against the Horse Artillery battery. It's now got 6 casualties. So it might need to think about unlimbering and moving. It's taking a lot of casualties from the skirmisher fire, and can't go on artillery assault given the number of casualties it's taken. Let's look across the line. Got some firing from the French skirmishers here. Again, there will be 4 shots. And I'll re-roll the red one again. The red's going against the right-hand battalion. That's no casualties, and no casualties on the right-hand battalion. So the French skirmishers here don't do anything. And if we look at these French battalions, you can see that this left-hand battalion, the middle battalion, one of the supporting battalions have lost their formation, driving up the steep slope, so they will have to reform, and this whole attack might have to pause as it shakes itself out, ready for a final push on the ridgeline against the Portuguese and their rapidly arriving reinforcements. Alright, I think that's it firing for the French. We'll now fire the Allies. Starting again on this flank, on the left, the Royal Foot Artillery will open up against another one of those French battalions in the distance. And we roll a 9. So at long range, that's 1 casualty and a discipline test. We'll also at the same time fire our 95th rifles. So we would normally get 3 shots, -1 for firing at skirmishers, but +1 because we're the 95th rifles and we are within 15-inch range. And we cause 1 casualty on the French skirmish screen. So 1 casualty on the middle infantry battalion, 1 on the skirmish screen, and we'll roll the discipline test. There will be no penalties on this. They roll an 8, so they are fine. Okay, so we're going to have 1 last shot against our horse with a horse artillery. We're going for the left-hand French battalion at effective range. Wow, that's a good roll. We get an 11 and 1 extra casualty from the combat dice. So at effective range, 11 is 3 casualties, so that's 4 casualties and a discipline test against the far left French battalion. Let's roll its discipline test. It rolls a 4. So that's a retreat and it will disappear off table. Bad news for the French. Okay, now we will fire our right-hand foot artillery battery. Here against, we'll go for the middle battalion in the Allied position. And this is again at effective range. We get a 7, but no extra casualties. And finally, in turn 3, our 2 infantry battalions will open fire against this skirmish screen. Let's just check the range and see whether the shots ripple through to the battalions behind them. If there's less than a 3-inch gap, I'll just measure it. So the right-hand battalion, which will be the red dice, don't get the -2 penalty for skirmishers because they're too close to the attacking battalion behind them. So this will go straight through, but the skirmishers will take the first casualty. The left-hand one will be at -2 because it is still shooting at the skirmish screen. So that's a loss of fire discipline for the Portuguese here, but they won't be charged next turn, so we won't worry about that. And then a 9 against the right-hand battalion will cause a fair bit of damage. So that was 3 casualties against this battalion on the right, so that's 1 will go against the skirmish screen, which will absorb the first casualty, but the next 2 do flow through to that battalion, and it'll have to take its discipline test. It's a 6. It also goes unformed. This whole brigade has been delayed by the steepness of the slope and the fierceness of the Portuguese fire. Okay, we'll go on with turn 4 and ADCs. Alright, so we've done our deployments on this flank. The Neither side are prioritising this one. It's the Allied brigade. It's not actually hesitant, as it says here. It became active, as indeed is the French brigade. So we'll see whether either side chooses to move forward. So we move across to the centre. The other two Allied brigades are active, and the Portuguese artillery battery has got artillery assault off. For the French, the central brigade is active but didn't have enough ADCs to put it on infantry assault, so it will be moving forward. The right-hand brigade, or left-hand, right as you see it here, did go hesitant, but that's not really a problem because it's just going to be reforming this turn, so we didn't actually allocate it any ADCs this turn. Right, on we go with initiative, then movement. The French will be on -2. Okay, let's roll. See who's got initiative. Right, that is a 6 -2 is a 4 for the French and a 4 for the British. I think the French had initiative last turn, so the French will go first. Okay, we just done French firing in turn 4, which was pretty mild in effect. This skirmisher screen fired up against these Portuguese line. The French artillery fired at long range against this infantry battalion in line, caused no casualties, and that's pretty much it. We'll now do the Allied return fire. There's more artillery batteries here, so we'll do these ones on camera. Firstly, we'll fire this one at long range against, again, that French brigade sitting on the back of the table. It does 8, that is 1 casualty against the French there. We will not fire our horse artillery, which has taken heavy casualties and just redeployed backwards to the top of the hill. We will fire our skirmishers against the French artillery battery. We caused 2 casualties against the French artillery battery. Alright, we'll just go and mark both of those before I forget. Okay, so we will now fire on artillery assault our foot battery. So switching artillery assault to our undamaged guns, and they're going to have a go again at that French line battalion at effective range. And there'll be an extra damage dice. So that's a 6 with 1 extra casualty at effective range. So that's 2 casualties on that attacking French battalion. Again, same targets for the Portuguese. French skirmish screen works for the left-hand battalion, so that's the blues, so they're at -2, but the right-hand one will go straight through against, well, keep going at that right-hand battalion. So that's a 5, that won't do anything, and an 8. I'm not sure that's going to do anything, perhaps just 1 casualty. I'll just go and check that. That did result in the loss of 1 skirmish base. On we go with turn 5 and ADCs. Okay, so the French did well with ADCs, and they managed to have a couple extra this turn, so they put them all on infantry assault. So now both their 2 brigades are here on the left wing have infantry assault orders, even if the 2nd brigade is still shaking itself out and needs to reform itself for a potential assault given the difficulty of climbing the hill. But all brigades on both armies are active, so this will be a straight roll for initiative. Alright, the Allies have initiative in turn 5. Okay, so we've seen quite a lot of movement in turn 5. Sorry, I think that's turn 6. Apologies if I skipped a turn, but I'm pretty sure this is turn 6. So this French columns to the left-hand 2 of this brigade charged up the hill, but again failed the discipline test and were only able to redress ranks and move at half speed. So the rest of the brigade moved up at half speed in support of them. The other brigade has formed up in the centre, and we can see that the Allies have shifted their 71st Light, I think that one is, from within the 71st Light? Yeah, it's the 71st Light. From within the village to try and take out the flank of this attack in the centre. As a result, the French brigade, which had been completely stationary, has started to react to this threat. We'll see how that unravels as we play through turn 6. Alright, let's move on with firing in turn 6, starting with the Allied guns. Okay, so this battery is going to open fire, and it's going to have a go at that infantry battalion there, and it's got some tasty bounce through as well. So let's see how it does. The blue dice will be for the bounce through. Okay, so they cause a bounce through casualty, and they do a 7, which at long range is half a casualty. So let's see if that one comes off. It does, so 1 casualty to each of those French battalions. Now we'll fire the 95th Rifles. Now we'll find the 95th Rifles against the French. 1 casualty. And I might as well do the French skirmishers firing back while we're over at this side of the table. They will get 3 dice. And they don't do anything either, so nothing from that exchange of skirmish fire. Alright, and now we'll fire the 95th Rifles garrison against that closest French battalion. 1 cock dice. No, nothing from that. Firing our skirmishers against the French artillery battery. We get 1 casualty. We will also fire this artillery battery. Now it's redeployed right down the valley at that French artillery battery. So this will be at -2 and -1 for its extra casualty. So 6 minus 3 is nothing. So that will be no further casualties other than from the skirmishers. We'll fire our foot artillery battery against the approaching light battalion. A 9. That's pretty good. Okay, so they have to take a discipline test. They have taken 7 casualties now, so this will be -1 for that, but +1 because they're veterans. 7. They are fine. Now my 2 battalions down here both advanced forward this turn, so they will both fire inferior volleys against that skirmish scheme. 3 will be nothing, and a 7 might be. 7 is on the blue, so it's on the Portuguese. A standard volley, other 7 is 2 casualties, but -2 for skirmishers is 1 more casualty against the skirmish screen. And finally we'll fire Portuguese, both will do a volley against the left and the right hand battalions. Again, the Reds being the right hand battalion. The right hand battalion gets a 6 and the left hand battalion gets a 9. That'll be a discipline test against the left hand battalion. They get a 6, so they unfortunately go unformed. Okay, so we'll do the return fire from the French skirmish screen. Okay, that's 1 casualty against the Portuguese. Dice there. Then we'll fire some volleys, inferior volleys from these columns. Starting with the right hand column, we get an 11, that's pretty good. So an 11, a standard volley is 4 casualties, but it's half effect, so that's 2, but 2 and a discipline test on the Portuguese. Next one at the same target. Wow, this is good. 10 is 2 again, and another discipline test. Let's do these discipline tests against the Portuguese because they're changing effect. So the first one will be a straight test, a 9 is fine. The second test will be a -1, 7. So they go unformed, not a good time for that. Alright, and then the third battalion, which is itself unformed, will do an inferior volley. Again. It uses an inferior volley anyway, so a 7 on an inferior volley is 1 and half casualties is 0, so no effect from that. Okay, let's just do a quick catch up where we are on turn 6. So this French brigade is poised to launch an assault, 2 battalions going to charge in, and one of those Portuguese battalions has been unformed by the volley fire it's received. In the centre, this French brigade is approaching, but the attack on the left-hand flank is not really going anywhere, and the Allies have decided to get more active, put some pressure on those French battalions, and employ their own elite battalions potentially to take out that French artillery, which will have to limber up and move off if it gets under any more threat. Alright, that's it for this evening. We'll carry on this game tomorrow, and look forward to seeing you all then. Cheers. Morning guys, just resuming the second part of our game of Neys assault at Bussaco. It's a bitter day outside. We're suffering really cold temperatures here this morning. I've just been out for a run, that was nice and bracing. And we're going to resume the game. Hopefully the lighting will be a bit better. I always think it films and the colours come across a bit better with a bit of natural light as well as the artificial light and extra lighting I've got to film the games. So welcome back to the second part. Just quick recap of where we are, and apologies, this is going to be following on edited into the other videos, so this might be a bit of repetition. So we've got the left-hand assault of Neys' attack going in against the Portuguese line here. They've been coming up that ridge and are pretty much formed up, ready for an assault to go in turn 7. We've got the second assault, which again has retained or just spent the last turn reforming, so it'll be ready to resume its advance against this part of the now reinforced Portuguese and British line. We have a counter-attack going on in the centre by the light battalion of the British, threatening the flank of the French artillery. It itself has caused this French division that was just pinning the British here on the right to start changing formation. So we'll see how these moves play out as we get on with ADCs for turn 7. Okay, so we've got a serious threat going on against the Portuguese formation here, so we've gone for a re-roll on the Portuguese brigade to make it active, and we've put artillery assault on its attached artillery battery. So let's see how we do. Can we activate this brigade with our re-roll? We have, so artillery assault goes off. Now let's roll for the other British brigades. Unfortunately no activations for them, or no EDCs for them. Right, so the right hand British brigade is active, that's helpful, and then the left hand British brigade is hesitant. So the British have one hesitant brigade and I'll be -1 on their initiative test. Okay, so now rolling for the French. We have 3 ADCs, so we're going to go for re-rolls on all the brigades, partly to try and retain the initiative, or get the initiative as the French, and also because we want to try and continue our assaults with these 2 left-hand brigades and respond with our brigade on the far right. So starting in line, first brigade is active, second brigade is active, and our right-hand brigade is active. No ADCs needed. Right, let's roll for initiative. So this will be allies at -1. Alright, French get 6, allies get 6, but because of that -1 adjustment, indeed, the French have initiative. We'll start with French charges. Alright, so we've got 2 charges here on the right flank as 2 Portuguese battalions, or 1 battalion is hit by 2 French battalions, and we do have support for both of those, so that will help that assault go in. And then fortunately for the French, as we go over here, this infantry battery here, we were going to try and charge it with the light troops here. Unfortunately, because there is, you may not be able to see, the brow of a hill ridgeline extending, they are out of line of sight. And if you're more than 9 inches away, you can't charge something you cannot see. So unfortunately for the British, that battalion can't charge the artillery battery this turn, so I have to go for movement. We'll now check to see whether this French artillery battery can charge them in the flank. With its charge bonus, it gets a 12-inch move. That looks like it'll be out of charge range. No, it's not. They will be able to pull off a charge. No defensive volley. This could be bad news for the British, and a major error of judgment moving out of the village. Alright, let's move that charge. Okay, so we will get some firing down here. So the 95th Rifles in the village, that's a small battalion, so they only get 2 dice. I guess they probably get 1 extra for the 95th Rifles. So 3 dice of fire against that closest battalion as it charges past them. Alright, that's 1 casualty, and for the 3rd shot, 1 more casualty on that, and 1 casualty from the charge, so that won't affect the charge results. Okay, so this will be a straight roll off as the French. Oh, let's do a bit of a close up. Yeah, come charging in against my light battalion. It'll be +2 for the Allies because they're elite, but +2 for the French, with a reroll because it's a flank attack. Alright, so the French have already won that, and I think we will go for the reroll because it's only a 2, a 6, and an 11. Wow, they won by 6. That's a dramatic result. Okay, so unfortunately for the Rifles, they take a right result and take 1d6 casualties. So they're taking 4 casualties, and that'll be a falter test for this Allied brigade. That was a huge blunder by the Allied forces. Okay, so the light battalion has now fallen back behind the village, still garrisoned by this small unit of the 95th Rifles, and the French forces have taken the ground, allowing them to recover 1 casualty and potentially threaten the village this turn. Right, let's move across to the left flank and do the charge results here. we've got a couple of defensive volleys to do first for the 2 Portuguese battalions. Right, let's do our Portuguese firing. We will get an extra combat dice for the left-hand battalion as it's still fresh and firing into column, but the right-hand battalion has now taken 5 casualties and will also therefore be at -1 on this roll. As always, we are applying the reds on the right, so that becomes a 9 because of the casualties, and we then get a combat dice. No, nothing. So no effect from the volley on the left. On the right, 9 casualties from an unformed battalion, so that goes down to a 7. Standard volley is 2 casualties, so that'll be 1 against each of those attacking battalions. Okay, so this is not looking great for the Portuguese. The 2 attacking columns are fortunately more than 3 inches apart, so they don't suffer from the massed column rule. There will be a support roll available, 2 support rolls actually for the Portuguese, but it will be at -3 because their defending battalion has got 1 casualty and is unformed. So let's see how that goes. We'll roll first for the right-hand attacking column. The French will have a -1, so we'll apply that. So the French go to 5 from the right-hand column. And let's roll for the left-hand column. We get a 7. Right, I'll just apply and work through the modifiers and come back with the result. Okay, so in multiple combats you roll the charge results and take the best result. We do get a chance for a re-roll, so that was a 6 the Allies had. We will take that re-roll because we do need to try and boost this result, because the French without re-rolls are on a 7 against a 3, which will be a retreat and a take the ground. Alright, let's re-roll this one. Okay, a 9. That's 1 re-roll, and we do have a second re-roll as well. Mind you, the French also have the possibility of 2 re-rolls. Do we try and re-roll the 3? I think we'll leave that as a 9, which gets reduced to a 6. Okay, and let's see whether the French do a re-roll as well. So the right-hand French battalion was on a 6. It will take its re-roll, stays on a 6, and it's at -1, so that stays on a 5. And then the left-hand French battalion was on a 7. It'll take its re-roll. It goes down to a 6, unfortunately. Alright, that is a much better result for the Portuguese. So both columns will halt and do a ragged volley at the Portuguese. Well done for having those supports. Good result, and that having 2 supporting battalions has already paid off. So a bit more resilience. Portuguese line is hanging in. Okay, so normal havoc induced by trying to aggressively march up this slope on the ridge. So the right-hand 3 battalions of this brigade formation have all gone unformed. The 2 left-hand battalions are still formed up, but they are unfortunately the ones facing off against the British line, so they'll probably take a bit of damage from that. Alright, we'll get on with firing for turn 7, starting with the French. Okay, we'll do some artillery fire. We're going to do some long-range fire from this British artillery battery on the hill. It's going to go down against this infantry battalion here, which is threatening the village, and its colleagues in the 95th Rifles. Let's see how they do. A 5 at long range. I think that might be a half casualty. Yes, it is. 4, 5 or 6. Well, we do 1 casualty with that artillery shot. Okay, our Royal Horse Artillery will open up and it will fire at this French battalion. Remembering the rules for Bussaco Ridge are there is no terrain that's out of sight because of the sheer height of the ridge. And as that French battalion is not in the village, it's not protected by the village, there's no shadow, as it were, from that village, so we can fire at it, but this will be at -1 because of the casualties we've taken. We roll a 3, that's a fatigue casualty. Clearly all the firing and limbering they've done is pretty much close to putting this unit out of action. That's probably the last shot of the game, otherwise we may lose that battery. Alright, the French artillery battery thought it was alright and decided not to limber up because it had only suffered 3 casualties, given that that threat was driven away by the French line units down here. Unfortunately, this skirmisher screen was outstanding this turn and inflicted 3 casualties, so I feel I've got no choice. I'm going to have to fire shrapnel at these skirmish screen to try and drive them away, and then probably drive them off with those French columns, otherwise I am going to have to limber and move that battery off table. Alright, let's fire a close range. This will be at -2 because I'm firing with skirmishers. A 7, that goes down to a 5. That'll probably be 1 casualty against that skirmish screen. And then finally for this turn, this British line battalion, and these are not going to be firing superior volleys because they're acting as proxies, these line battalions, for Portuguese cacadores, which were only line units. So he's going to be firing a regular volley against that French column and accompanying his Portuguese colleagues here, who will fire into that unformed column. Both of them, first casualty, will go against the skirmisher screen. Let's fire those 2 volleys. Again, reds on the right and blues on the left. Okay, so the reds do nothing. They do get an extra combat dice. That causes 1 casualty. The right-hand volley also gets an extra combat dice, which does nothing. A 6 at close range, standard volley, 1 casualty, which will be on the skirmishers, who've already taken 2. That'll be the loss of 1 skirmish base. Okay, and now we open up with artillery assault with our foot artillery battery against this attacking French light battalion. That's a good roll. That's an 11 and 2 extra casualties. So an 11 at close range is going to be devastating. That's 4 casualties and a discipline test, so that's 6 casualties and a discipline test against that French battalion. And I think it's already taken 7, so it may well be wiped out. Okay, that's shooting for the turn. Indeed, that French battalion had taken 7 casualties, so even though the skirmish screen took the first from that artillery fire, that still resulted in 5 more casualties. Against the light battalion, it took 12 casualties and has dispersed. As a result, there will be a falter test on this French brigade, so falter tests on both armies as we start and look forward to turn 8. Okay, so the British got 4 ADCs, so they've allocated 2 to the British brigade with the falter test. This will be an important role for them. The other 2 Allied brigades have both gone active, but because of the need to do the re-rolls on the falter test, we have no artillery assault on the Allied army. Okay, let's just roll for their falter. This is a fairly critical roll. We will lose this village if this brigade goes. We get a 3. So this brigade has got 2 veteran or elite units in it. Let me just check the status. Alright, so for elite units, if you get a 3, you do rally, which is good. However, routing units do disperse, so I would lose my elite largest battalion in this particular brigade and put me in a pretty precarious position. Do I take the risk of using my reroll to reroll the 3? The worst I can get is a retire, which probably means nothing more will leave the table. So we're going for it. I've rolled it off the table. It's a 1. That is not good. Alright, that's a retire result for the brigade. So it probably was worth the risk. I would have lost the light battalion anyway, does so how foolish that charge was. Should have just stayed in my defensive position and held this part of the line. I still think the British position here on the left wing is pretty impregnable given the quality of the troops still on the ridgeline and the fact that we do still hold the village and we're on turn 8. But it would have been a lot better if I'd been able to use that one to shore up my defences in the centre. Anyway, the good news is the retire result resulted in this line battalion only falling back off the ridgeline. It can come back onto the table next turn. This brigade counts as hesitant. Alright, so we have 1 allied hesitant brigade. Let's just do the activations for the French. Okay, so similarly for the French, we've now got to do our falter test against this brigade. Again, we have a reroll. Our right hand brigade has gone hesitant, our left hand brigade is active. And we get a 6, obey orders. That's tremendous news for the French. We can keep pressing forward with the attack. We will now move on to initiative. So both sides will be on -1 for 1 hesitant brigade. Let's see what we get. A 6 to the Allies, 7 to the French. Okay, the French have initiative. They can continue their attack. Okay, so with the British battalion gone, the French battalion is going to wheel slightly to its left and charge in against the Portuguese, with its support coming up behind. It needs to take a test for the final charge up the hill. 8. It goes unformed and stops at half distance, and its support is fine and remains formed. On the right here, the French commanders have again chivied their battalions up and got them to charge in against this unformed Portuguese line. Let's see how its defensive volleys do this turn. Okay, again, red for right hand battalion, blue for the left hand battalion. The right hand battalion is on -1 and unformed. Another terrible set of shooting. No casualties at all. We do get 2 casualty dice, which does cause 1 casualty to the right hand battalion. But again, no impact on stopping the charge. Alright, so these are our rolls before adjustments. So the Allies did pretty well. They've got a 9, but they will have to take -3 off that, so that'll take them down to a 6. The best French roll so far is a 10. The 10 has got to go down by 1, because that's the attacking battalion on the right, which has taken 5 casualties. So that takes it to a 9. That'll be 9 against a 6. Let's just have a think, see whether we want to do any re-rolls for our supports. Okay, so 3 is enough for the French to cause the Portuguese to retreat and take the ground, which will get them up onto the ridge. So I think the French are probably going to stick on those rolls, and I think also for the Portuguese, it's probably only going to get worse. So don't know whether to re-roll the 4. I have got 2 re-rolls. Let's have a go at re-rolling the 4. A 5, that's better. Okay, so we'll stick on that. That's a 10, -3 for being unformed and casualties, takes us down to a 7, and that will be, well, let's re-roll one of the French as well then, in the light of that. No, that's nothing. So the French are on a 10 against a 7. I think that's still a +3, yeah. So it's still, no, it's a +2. So the attacker melees with Elan. Alright, so we do go into melee, and the attacking battalions have Elan, and the defenders remain unformed. That's still not looking good for the Portuguese. I really do like the charge resolution on General d'Armée rules, although, as you can see, it does get a little bit complicated when you have multiple battalions attacking with multiple supports. But it's one of those things that, to me, gives me the flavour of Napoleonics, in that you get cavalry charging in, being repulsed, bouncing off, infantry similarly charging in, or columns being halted by defensive volleys and staggering to halt and having to let off their own ragged volley. It really, to me, is a great part of the system. Just does get a bit clunky with multiple units involved. So we've got, 7 units in this combat, 2 supports and the core Portuguese unit, and then 2 attacking battalions with 2 supports in their own right. So that really is stretching the system to making it a bit head-scratching, but I think we got through it fine. So there we are. We'll now move on to shooting in normal movement in turn 8. Okay, tragedy for the French. We've done an emergency limber due to the threat of these skirmishers, who did tremendously well last turn, caused 3 casualties on this artillery battery, so it took it up to 6. Unfortunately, doing an emergency limber and moving off does cause 1 extra casualty. That took them up to 7, and the skirmishers have just opened fire against the limbered artillery, and unfortunately they are still in range and have caused the final casualty. So the artillery battery is dispersed. So we've both lost the French support, and that will be a falter test again against this French brigade. Okay, our Allied artillery is going to open up. Again, looking to fire at that column on the right in the distance here. Firing this one at long range. Does 7, that'll be 1 casualty against that column. Alright, our horse artillery, which we were about to consider withdrawing, we decided to leave in position because most of the threats against it have disappeared, and although the brigade is hesitant, it has got targets at effective range, including with bounce through, so it's going to fire against this French column on the flank of the French position. Right, let's fire at them. 3, that's a fatigue casualty. Now, why did I tell myself not to fire this battalion? It was because if it took a fatigue casualty, it would disperse, which indeed it has. Unfortunately, that's another fault to test against the Allies. Okay, now firing the Portuguese against the attacking French battalions. They get a 7. At close range, we'll go against that we'll go against that formed battalion in the middle. That's a bigger threat. So standard volley at 7 is 2 casualties, 1 against the skirmish screen. Skirmish screen's only taken 1, so that'll be a second pip against the skirmish screen. Alright, one will now fire our artillery battery against the same target. A 7. At close range is 2 casualties in a discipline test. There'll be 1 more casualty against the skirmish screen, so that'll remove a base, and a discipline test against that French battalion in the centre. It's only taken 3 casualties. It goes unformed. Okay, just have to pick all the dice up and put down again because this is too many dice for one hand. Okay, that looks bad for the Allies. The French shed loads of dice. 2 full strength battalions pretty much attacking with a LAN against 1 unformed battalion. Has the benefit of height, but that unfortunately only gives them 1 extra dice. Let's see how we do. Okay, what we got for the French? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 casualties for the French. Pretty good by the Portuguese, but not nearly enough. So 3 by the Portuguese, so we will apply those casualties, but that will be a rout result, losing by 3, and the French will take the ridge. Okay, so we've got multiple fault to tests going on this turn as the action really hots up. So the French breaking through onto the ridge here against the Portuguese, but the French themselves having to take a fault to test, having had their artillery support wiped out and not really making good progress against here and taking a lot of casualties from the British artillery. And unfortunately my own foolishness again twice on this brigade, not only charging out with my light battalion causing all sorts of problems, I then fired my artillery forgetting it only had 1 casualty left. And even though it wasn't threatened, the gun crew basically said they'd had enough. That's it for the day. They were exhausted and have limbered up and left the battlefield. So we have a fault to test again for the British in the centre. Alright, let's do ADCs and some critical fault tests. Okay, so the Allies did well. They rolled 5 ADCs and they've allocated 1 to this brigade on the left, and unfortunately it failed twice, so it's not activated, so it has gone hesitant. Okay, let's do the fault tests themselves. Firstly, for this brigade in the centre, first roll is a 2. We are going to re-roll that. We've got a 3. This is an elite brigade, so it rallies. Alright, so that's good news. Nothing further falls off the table. I think it remains hesitant this turn though. And now, really importantly, rolling for my Portuguese. The regular line battalion gets a 5. That's pretty good. 5 is an obey orders, so no further tests necessary for the Portuguese this turn. Okay, that's good. So the French got 4 ADCs, so they've allocated 1 to their attacking brigade. Let's see if the brigade goes active. It does. And then we'll do 1 for their brigade against the farm. They go hesitant, alright, and now we'll do our fault tests against this brigade in the centre. It gets a 3 on a line brigade, which is a retire. So we don't have any retreating or routing units. So all close order units lose a casualty, we lose 1 base. Artillery is already off the table. And the brigade remains faltering. They have to retire. I think we're going to have a go at re-rolling that. We want to keep the pressure up. We get a 5, that's much better. That's obey orders. That really was worth that re-roll and the risk there, so we can keep the pressure on and the potential attacks up and try and capture the rest of the ridge. Okay, so with the French brigade being hesitant on this flank, we've got really no activity over here. I do need to move those allied skirmishers, we'll just ping them around. Otherwise, as we move over to the right flank, the British battalion has started moving forward in support of its Portuguese comrades again. They continue to try and hold off this French assault. They've all now formed up and be ready to charge next turn. Over on the right, it really does look like the end of this Portuguese brigade. 2 battalions have gone in for close assault against this Portuguese battalion. So they will have some penalties for going in such a tight formation, but they're really just trying to break this whole Portuguese brigade. And here the other two battalions with supports have charged in against this second Portuguese battalion. Alright, we'll do defensive fire and charge resolution. So this volley will be at -2 because we're informed. That's nothing, lose of fire discipline. And then the volley here, actually this battalion is supporting that battalion. It has not charged them, it's supporting this charge here. Only one battalion has charged in. But I think it still counts as, yeah, which way should we do it? I don't think these need support, they will support them. But this will be a compressed columns, so there is a combat dice bonus. I think it's 2 possibly for the defensive volley. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's called massed columns, and you get 2 bonus combat dice, which has played off well. So we get 9 casualties, plus 9 result, and 2 extra combat dice. So a standard volley as 9 is 3. That's 5 casualties and a discipline test against the attacking French. So the discipline test on this attacking column will be at -1. Whoa, 5, 4. So they still come on, but they are unformed. So this first charge doesn't look so good for the French. They'll be at -3 because they're unformed and have got 6 casualties. They do have a reroll, the Portuguese don't. Alright, the Portuguese get 8, and then we'll apply the modifiers to these dice. So that goes to 11. As a result of those modifiers, negative modifiers against the French. The French do have a possibility of a reroll. We will reroll the 3. Stays as a 3, so we lose by 4. So we will not charge home and probably retire or retreat. -3, we retire, which is 12 inches, so those 2 battalions fall back. Okay, rolling the second charge. Portuguese have done better, they've rolled a 7. They are unformed though, so that becomes a 5. They have no rerolls. The French have rolled a 4. Let's roll the second battalion. And a 3. That's pretty terrible. Well, we'll leave the 3 and we'll re-roll the 4, and we'll re-roll that for our 1 support. A 4, my god. 4 against a 5, that's a -1. So, at -1, they will both volley. So that's 2 volleys against the Portuguese. 1 casualty against the Portuguese battalion, and the French are held off. Okay, I'll just do the rest of the firing for turn 9. Okay, so turn 9, French got initiative. Unfortunately, this brigade in front of the Allied lines really is struggling to get its attack into place. I think the volume of firepower is really starting to whittle it away, and unfortunately it's gone hesitant. The brigade on the right is active, as is the brigade against the farm. We might see an assault going against the farm this turn. Alright, let's do charges. French have initiative, turn 10. Okay, so charges and movement. We've got a charge going in against the farm. There's no charge resolution, as you automatically go in. So we've just moved 1 battalion in, and you've got 2 further ones supporting the French. As we look across in the centre, we've moved the British up to flank that attacking French battalion that's hesitant. And on the right, we've got charges going in. We'll do the defensive volleys and the charge resolutions now for the right flank. So we rolled a 7. So 9, but -2 for being unformed becomes a 7, which is 2 casualties, so that will have some impact on the charge result. Let's now roll charges for the French. We're supporting this with 1 further battalion. Okay, the French get the 7. The Portuguese get a 6. Portuguese have no rerolls, French have a reroll. Okay, so the French have charged home. They will be meleeing with Elan. Okay, so we've just fired all of the French skirmishers and the French battalions, a few minor casualties. The British have just fired into this attacking French column, just caused 1 casualty, but it's got 9 casualties now, so it might disperse. We're going to open fire on it with this Portuguese line battalion. Not with a roll like that, unfortunate for the Portuguese. They don't do anything, and then we will fire artillery -1 against the attacking French battalion in the centre. 5, not great. Close range, a 5 is 1 casualty, which will be taken against the skirmish screen. Okay, let's do the assault against the farm and against the 95th Rifles. Relatively evenly balanced. The French are attacking. They actually have a small battalion against a small battalion of riflemen, and neither have got heavy casualties, and the riflemen are defending a built-up area, so they actually get an advantage of 1 more dice. Alright, that's 2 for the riflemen. I think that's fallen down the hole, that's cocked. Right, and 2 for the French. So you can get to fight a second round of combat, but the French do get to throw up to 3 battalions into the combat. I think the Rifles will withdraw. The village, after all, is not the ridge, and is not critical to the defence, and will avoid them getting wiped out. Okay, a lot more important combat down here. French have a mild advantage as they're attacking with Alain, and actually also, I guess they're not attacking up at the ridge, but they are attacking down from the ridge. I don't think I'll give them the bonus for that. Alright, let's see how this one goes. Alright, well, again, looks like Portuguese have done alright. 2 casualties and only 1 by the French. The French will be repulsed, but they are going to get hit in the flank next turn, so that does not look good. Okay, so turn 11, so much against my expectations. The Portuguese are still hanging in there. I think they are about to lose this right-hand element of their brigade, which might mean losing the artillery and this battalion as well, so that would not be good for the Allied position. But the French still aren't on the ridge at turn 10, and this brigade looks in quite a lot of trouble. Right, let's move on with turn 11. So unfortunately for the Allies in turn 11, they've gone hesitant in the centre, not a surprise when you look at what's left of their brigade, and the fact that they've now been pushed out of the village in the centre. As we look across the battlefield, the French have all of their brigades active, so they'll be pushing forward with their assaults in turn 11. Okay, so the French are moving up and again trying to assault this Portuguese battalion. Has taken 4 casualties, but will get quite a lot of supporting fire. The French do have 2 supporting battalions. Alright, let's do the defensive fire. Right, from the battalion itself. Does nothing, so it loses fire discipline. From the artillery brigade, that's a 7. At close range is 2 casualties and a discipline test against this attacking French battalion. Let's take it up to 5 casualties now. Let's do its discipline test at -1. Does not look good. 6-5. It goes unformed. Alright, for a charge result, French have rolled a 9, so we're not going to go any re-rolls on that. That looks pretty good, so that reduces to a 7 against a 9 for the Portuguese, which becomes an 8. So it's an assault. They lose by 1 on the charge result. So they will do a volley and cause a casualty against the Portuguese. This battalion attack grinds to a halt. Okay, so we've just done the firing as well as we're moving along the line, and we fired this British battalion against that French battalion on the flank. That's caused, we've got an 8. That caused 3 casualties, causes that battalion to disperse, and that brigade will be on a falter test. Yeah, the French will do much better. They are on at least a +6 because they're charging the Portuguese in the flank, and the Portuguese are also unformed. Yeah, they're going to win that, and the Portuguese are going to rout. Okay, so the French may charge on 3d6. That's pretty good, that's 14 inches. Okay, so as you can charge on up to 45 degrees, they've been able to go into the flank of this next Portuguese column. And again, they win by, that's a great roll, no support for the Portuguese. They win by at least 5 plus another 4 for charging in the flank. That's another Portuguese broken battalion dispersed. Okay, so that's it for turn 11. Let's now do a quick version of turn 12. I don't think we're going to see any action on the left-hand side of the table. We'll just do a little bit of firing over there. And over here we've got, again, not an awful lot of action to happen. We may well lose that British artillery battery to a flank charge. It's certainly going to have to do an emergency limber and try and flee. Perhaps that's what it'll do. We'll do ODCs, we'll do the falter test and see where that leaves us and probably call it there. Okay, so the French have 4 ADCs, so we'll roll for their right-hand brigade. Got its reroll. It's clearly so overjoyed by having taken the ridge, it's gone hesitant. That is a tragedy. It's not going to be able to carry on its charges, despite the reroll. Okay, And now let's see how they do with their faltering brigade. Again, we have a reroll on this, and they obey orders, so that's good news that they won't disperse. Okay, we're going to call the game there. Let's have a look at how the battle ended up. So the left-hand end of Wellington's line still remains very secure. The British battalions here untroubled, pretty much no casualties, just some damage to the rifle skirmishing screen. The French battalions, they were all small battalions, so they didn't have great offensive punch. They've done pretty well. They've managed to pin this British brigade in position, and they did through some really bad judgment by the British. So apologies to British supporters who were watching this video. That was a really bad decision making by me. Thought we had the opportunities to go aggressive and put some flank pressure on these attacks that were going in against the British centre and right. Moved our light battalion out of the village, and as a result, with just the riflemen in there to defend it, the small French force has been able to secure the village, but unfortunately has not been able to get up the draw and onto the ridge line. Still got some British skirmishers holding the edge of that wooded ravine, and the French firmly ensconced in the village, not looking like they're going to get pushed out anytime soon. We've got 2 battalions in there and another one in support. So stalemate really here on the left. As we move into the centre, really close. This French brigade's down to half strength now. Lost 3 battalions. And is still in not a great position. It's got a full strength British battalion on its flank. It's got a Portuguese battalion still with only 5 casualties to its front, and a pretty strong artillery battery. So I think that brigade's got pretty limited chance of getting up onto the ridge, and indeed its front battalion is unformed, so not going to get anywhere. However, their real success here was on the right flank. It took pretty much all of the game together, but this battalion did particularly well, destroying 2 Portuguese. It has definitely seized the ridge, and I think I would count all those 5 French battalions as either on the ridge or approaching it. Remember, we didn't move turn 12, so I could have moved those battalions up, certainly if they had lucky dice rolls, and you always do move at least 9 inches unformed in column, so I think all of them would have been able to count as being on the ridge. And if we hadn't gone hesitant, perhaps we would have taken out this artillery battery with a charge in the flank. So I think the British position here was at the point of unravelling, certainly all the way from the village to its right. Their weight of French attacks on the flank and the pinning to the front would have pushed them away in the next 2 or 3 turns. So that's where we've ended up in the game. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. And so who's won? Well, it comes down to who controls the ridge, because neither side have broken 3 brigades. We will have to do a false test against our Portuguese brigade, see if that was broken, but that would only be the first Allied brigade to be broken in the game. And again, the French have done remarkably well. They've not lost any brigades in this game. And they have 5 battalions on the ridge. How many do the Allies have? 1, 2, 3, 4, and not forgetting the small rifle battalion. So there we go, 5 battalions each. Possession of the ridge is shared, and I think certainly a tactical victory for the French. And if you look at the fact that they've certainly fought Wellington to a draw here, and they were victorious in Neys' assault on the other part of the ridgeline, I think we have to say, unlike history, the French have won this one. Cheers, hope you enjoyed the 2 games. Hi guys, as a tail end, I just thought I'd give you a shot of what I'm up to next. I've somehow foolishly given myself the objective of doing the first, at least an element of the 1st Cavalry Corps of the French 1815 army, which includes 3 regiments of hussars. So here's my go at the first set. These are the 1st hussars. Quite a nice unit. I've got the elite company wearing, I don't know whether we can see it very well in this light, wearing the red trousers, which the unit had prior to 1814. Most of the rest of the unit in blue, and comes along quite nicely. These are periplastics. So I've actually got to do 8 bases, I think, at 1 to 20th scale for this regiment. I've only done 6. I'm going to go for starting the next regiment. I'm going to have a go at the 4th next, which is a very similar uniform with just a bit more red involved and red shakos. And so we'll be moving on to them next over the next couple of weeks. And I think it was the 4th Cavalry Division had the 1st, 4th and 5th Hussars. Again, another blue regiment, more sky blue regiment with white pelisses, if that's the right term. And the 4th were blue regiment with red pelisses. So that should be quite an impressive unit when it all gets on the tabletop. So anyway, 6 bases down, 18 Hussars done. I think I've got a regiment of 5 bases, another regiment of 7 bases, so that's 12 more bases, plus 2 more bases for this. That's 14 times 3, 30, 42 more Hussars to go. Oh my god, did I really let myself in for this? Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, this little video at the tail end of my main one. Looking forward to seeing you all again next time. Our next video will be a non-Napoleonic one. We had such a number of views of our ECW game that I'm thinking probably going towards ECW, but I do love my mid-imperial Romans as well, so be one or other of those next time. So please join us again for our next game. Lockdown continues, so I think there's a few more videos to come before we're out of this. Thanks very much for sending us all your comments. Please subscribe, and I'll catch you all next time. Cheers, guys.